So the Tortured Poets department kind of took my expectations, ran them through the shredder at the back of the office, and then left me stranded and broken. And it was a wonderful time at first, but now I'm kind of like, was it? What was it? What was anything? Was this sentence? I don't know what's happening. I already recorded this, and I didn't like the way that it sounded. I didn't like the audio quality. So now I'm re-recording it, hoping it sounds better. But I'm also kind of just in a very bad mental health space. And also, my thoughts on the album have kind of changed. They've soured a little bit, but at the same time, I still appreciate it as a burnt out, tired bitch. So this will be fun. Let's see how this goes. I might get shot for this. So anyway, I don't know about y'all, but I was kind of expecting this to be like a breakup album, you know, with the vibe of a classy high society folklore. But it was not that. It was not that. And I also expected anger and sadness, but I wasn't expecting this much anger and vitriol. And I also wasn't expecting the sonic discord that's in this album. I can't really say what the genre of this album is, because it's got, you know, synths. It's kind of synthy pop, a little bit like Midnight's, but way more low energy, a bit more, it's kind of like lo-fi almost. But then it has like dabblings of country and folk, especially in like those middle tracks. But it doesn't, to me, feel like an intentional like mixing of genres like Red. Like Red was very clearly her wanting to dabble in pop while still, you know, staying with country because her label was like, what the fuck are you doing? Whereas Tortured Poets, it kind of feels like it's all over the place. And I don't want to say it wasn't intentional, but I'm wondering why it was the intent. Because honestly, it kind of feels like the sound of this album almost was an afterthought. Like all the effort went into like the lyrics and the prose, which obviously, yeah, because it's called Tortured Poets Department. Taylor's bag has always been the songwriting, but like the sound of this album, especially compared to her previous works, I mean, I like it. A lot of it did work for me on a lot of tracks. But I think overall, it's making it harder for me to like pin down what this album is. I can't say that I don't understand what this album is about, because I very much do. It's very much giving like almost mental breakdown, using these pieces of imagery about like mental hospitals and insane asylums being locked away because the public has branded you like a crazy woman, because you've been heartbroken by these shitty men, because the industry has literally driven you crazy, the public has driven you crazy, and so you're just kind of like publicly tearing yourself apart before them, before they get a chance to. And so you get this album that is very much not a digestible piece of art the way that her other albums are. And in a way, I very much highly respect that. And I love that. And it really resonates with me, especially where I am mental health wise. But it also makes me kind of understand why this album is not clicking for a lot of people and why it's not a favorite among a lot of people. Like, I don't think it deserves the amount of vitriol it has received at all. Like, Jesus Christ, people. Like, people are acting like this album is the downfall of society. And I'm like, shut up. This is the woman who wrote Folklore. Give her a pass. But at the same time, it's like, I can understand why a lot of people would not vibe with it. Because, like, I really liked it on first listen, but I've noticed it's starting to wane on me, like, immediately. Wow, that was all off script. Wow, my thoughts really have changed since I wrote this script. I'm a menace. I should be locked away. So, yeah, I think for me, I am still very much processing my feelings about this era, but I really do. I love the messiness. I love the brutal honesty. I love the raw vulnerability. I really like the imagery that's going on that's to do with mental health. I do kind of wish we leaned a bit more into like the whole department thing, because it's really giving the Tortured Poets department is just a way to make fun of pretentious art assholes who are like, you must suffer to create good art. Like, it's playing on that, but I wish we went a bit further. Like, one of my friends was talking about this album, you know, wishing that it had more interludes, because we both really loved Cowboy Carter, you know, by Beyonce. Cowboy Carter has my heart and soul. Favorite album of the year so far. But like, Cowboy Carter has a lot of interludes on it. Some of them are songs that are just shorter, but others are like these like mock radio segments of like different people introducing different songs to like, you know, set the vibe more. And I kind of wish Tortured Poets had that too. Like we get to hear different people, different heads of different parts of this department. Add some like sound effects of like people going around the office, like going through files and filing cabinets. I think I really would have liked that, because again, like the whole case file department feeling, it feels like nice imagery, but I wish we did more with that. I never thought I would say that when it comes to a Taylor Swift album, but here we are. But you know, like this mixture of exhaustion and exasperation, I am here for that. In a way, I feel like a lot of things that are lacking in this album also kind of lean towards it feeling like a burnout album, which I really vibe with. I vibe with it so much. And you know, it's that thing about art where it's like, even if you don't intend it, a lot of yourself is going to be revealed in the process about it. And it makes me really, really hope Taylor is taking a nice long nap, because I think she really needs one. Like between everything that's going on in her personal life, you know, with these shitty men and the public, like dissecting her every move and kind of going back and forth between loving her and hating her. And then all the work that she's been doing with the new albums and then the re-recordings, like, girl, I think it's time to sit down, sit with yourself for a little while and just relax. Give yourself a moment to breathe and process things. I understand songwriting is a big part of how she processes her feelings, but like, we don't gotta hear all of it. There's a lot of times where you'll, you know, as an artist, create things that no one else will ever hear, no one will ever read. I've written many things that the public is never going to see because they're not for the public. They're for me and only me. But the thing with this album, as mixed as my feelings are on it, the reason I just find it so compelling and fascinating is just how it lets us bear witness to an unraveling. A creative screaming into the void, ranting and raving about how they've been so thoroughly disillusioned by love, by the world, by reality crashing through the narratives that they had crafted so carefully around themselves. The castle has crumbled, and now the queen is very mad, very unhinged, and very, very done. I wanna kill her. Now, with all of that said, I want to be upfront in that I'm not going to be delving too much into Taylor's personal life. So if you're expecting me to, you know, talk about London Boy or certain 1975 douchebags or current loves, you ain't getting that. Frankly, it's none of my business. I will gossip about it with my friends in private, but publicly, on my public platform, I will not be doing that. Besides, there are other people who are doing that. You'll get your content. You'll get fed somewhere. However, for the funsies, I will admit, I am still shocked at how soundly the London Boy is probably sleeping right about now. Like that moment when you realize who this album is really about, I think we were all shooketh. Oh my god, talk about like top 10 anime plot twists. Today, I am gonna give my initial thoughts on the album now that I've had some time to sit with it and talk with friends about it. You know, it's time to get paid for my pain. You know, how I'm interpreting the story, how it's resonating with me, things I like, things I don't like, you know, etc., etc. I will likely do a deep dive at a later date, but you know, I just still gotta get around to that goddamn Evermore deep dive. Mental health. I'm so depressed, I act like it's my birthday. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen my folklore deep dive, it's over there if you really like it. I didn't know how to use a microphone properly at the time. It took me many years. I still feel embarrassed about it. I hope this sounds good. I might also feel embarrassed about this. I might be at a point where I believe I can do no right. So there might not be any saving me. So, okay. Oh, yeah. 10 minutes or 11 minutes into my recording, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Thomas Chow, also known as the Unicorn of War. And I make video essays, reviews, miscellaneous ramblings about the media that I enjoy. You know, Taylor Swift, Winx Club, Slayers, Witch, whatever the mood is striking at that particular moment, it's very eclectic and weird. But you know, if I want to talk about it at length and you want to listen to me ramble for a few hours while you're doing other shit, I hope you enjoy the sound of my chaos. I mean, my voice. So if any of that sounds enjoyable to you, you know, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. It's a whole thing we say around here. And also you can support myself and the channel over on Patreon if you so wish. Extra content, early access scripts and videos and such. Access to the private Union of War Discord server where you can witness my madness up close. I feel like there's a joke in there about like who's afraid of little old me, but I'm just too tired to make it. Anyhow, without further ado, let the madness begin. Let's go into the Asylum Children. So what really strikes me about this album right off the bat is how diaristic it feels. Taylor's writing has always been diaristic. She's always been very autobiographical, even when she tries to throw us off the goddamn scent, like Midnight's, or even arguably Folklore and Evermore. But I don't think she's ever been this raw with her material. Midnight's was vulnerable, but it felt like it was trying to beat around the bush, trying to hide what it was really about until You're Losing Me. You know, that song really put everything into perspective. Side note, I'm still kind of annoyed with all the extra variants that were released for that album and this album. This is a side note. I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but I really don't like this practice of like splitting up all these extra songs on different versions to like get people to like pay for different variants. Look, is it cute? Yes. However, that's a lot of material that we're wasting, and also that's kind of exploitative of your fans. I'm just saying.
Oh, can I hurt her, please?
Especially like because we were under the impression that like the extra songs off of Tortured Poets were going to be on like all these different variants, and we didn't even realize they would be on the main album until like 2 a.m. Which, we'll get there. Which to me just feels icky. Like, I'm sorry, it feels icky. I gotta call it like I see it. But back to my main point. Tortured Poets, it feels a lot more blunt and direct and aggressive. You have to thoroughly decode it, but this feels like her most venomous album yet. Like, right off the bat, the lines about, being unwell and them forgetting to, take her away, presumably to an asylum somewhere. It really tells us that she's not in a good headspace, which, to be fair, who is? She's reminiscing about a short-lived tryst that continues to vex her. There's also mentions of running to Florida, the state sponsored by insanity. If you don't know, if you're not American, Florida is the place where the craziest shit goes down. I'm pretty sure Florida is just another dimension that was stapled onto our reality. But she explains in this cute little iHeartRadio interview that I only know about because someone shared a TikTok about it in my server, that all the mentions of Florida are largely about choosing this random place to run away to after an awful heartbreak, comparing it to people trying to hide after committing, a terrible crime. Basically, like, my life is shit, so I need a clean slate, so I'm gonna run off to Florida, because no one's gonna look for me there, in the dank-ass swamps where I can hide the evidence of my past sins. I can live among the gators, and they'll never judge me, except they will. Gators are notoriously judgmental creatures, thinking they're all high and mighty with their ugly ass long snouts and their disgusting scales the color of dried vomit. You ain't shit, Gator. This channel is anti-Gator. The title track also speaks about a lover who is self-sabotaging, throwing spikes down on the road, but, I still love this show even if it's killing me inside, like me at the new seasons of Winx Club. But this lover is very self-sabotaging and destructive, and our narrator is trying to help them through their shit. The mention of the typewriter gives me the vibe that this person is disgustingly pretentious, likely with arrogance to compensate for their insecurities. And now in the wake of the breakup, Taylor's going, no, you ain't shit, actually. And actually, neither am I. But damn, you're a fool for not realizing what you had. Like, bitch, I'm Taylor Swift. Like, I may hate myself, but how dare you not see what you had? I really feel for her at the mention of the wedding rings. Like, goddamn, homegirl really wants to be loved more than anything else. And this man is out here making ambitious promises that he knows he can never frickin' make good on. A lot of this album is just trying to rationalize her relationship with the man while she's in it, going, oh no, he's not that bad. I promise. I promise I can bring out the best in him. I can make him stop saying the slurs. Contrasted with her frustration and realizing she really just wasted her time on a waste of space whose love was just a cheap hoax, which hurts worse considering the 6-year relationship she just got out of, like, oof. And in the aftermath of it all, she's just completely burnt out. If that wasn't real, nor the relationship that pushed her into this man's arms, what the fuck is real? Is anything real? Are you real? Am I real? Are we all just hallucinations of some lonely woman named Shelby? No, I don't know where the name Shelby came from. I don't know. I should have gone with Clara, but it's too late. But the point is, Shelby hates herself, and so do we. But if nothing is real and we're all the depressed mass hallucinations of some lonely woman named Shelby, then why shouldn't I just lie in bed all day binge-watching Catfish and telling God and his sick sense of humor to go fuck himself? This level of being completely fed up reminds me a lot of SZA's album SOS. Granted, they are very different albums sonically, and truthfully, I love SOS way more than I love Tortured Poets. And honestly, SOS also reminds me a lot more of Red than Tortured Poets. But I think this energy of crying out for help through screaming at the sky is something that they have in common. Though that does bring me to something I think is admittedly a weakness of this era, a lack of sonic identity. That's not to say I dislike the production on this album. Personally, I love the focus on her vocals, how hazy and dreamy a lot of them are, the weird beep-boop-bop, almost sci-fi synths. Like, ooh, girl, the way that they work with that UFO metaphor on Down Bad, chef's kiss. And I also really like the country flares on those middle tracks, but I don't know if I could boil down this album the way that you can with her other eras. Once again, it kind of lends to something I like about this era is that it feels like burnt out, mad ramblings that I really relate to, but I feel like it also kind of hurts the album a little bit. Like, I'm not saying that Taylor owes people, like, actually, am I saying that? I don't know. My point is, like, I think it depends on what you're looking for. If I had to compare this to any era, maybe Reputation, but Reputation was a lot more secure than this one. Because Reputation, yes, is the story about her dealing with the fact that the world hated her at that point in time, the way that it kind of does now. But Reputation was also this love story about finding someone who loved her in spite of everything else, who didn't care about her fame, or rather infamy, and just loved her for her, presumably. And, you know, being secure in that. Like, sure, the world hates me, but I got my happy ending. Tortured Poets is a complete deconstruction of that. Tortured Poets is saying, I don't think there is a happy ending. I think we all just do the best we fucking can, and then one day we die. It's a dismantling of this feeling that everything will work out, and an embrace of the chaotic parts of life where things don't line up like a story where the good are ultimately rewarded. Is that me reaching? Bitch, I don't know, but it's how I feel. So Long London really feels like it epitomizes the bitterness that this album was born out of. She tries so hard to make this love work, to wait for this person to come around and show up, only to leave disappointed and wondering why the hell they weren't important enough for this other person to finally prove their love. And then you get But Daddy, I Love Him, where she displays this frustration with the public for criticizing her personal life in the name of wanting her to make better choices. Not gonna lie, I was kind of living for how much of a troll she was in that baby joke, and her stating only she can tarnish her good name. As triumphant as it feels, I also can't help but feel sorry for her feeling trapped by her own success in this way, to the point where escaping with this human trash bag feels liberating. Like, what the fuck? But the point is, like, she can't even live her life and make these messy choices that arguably most people do without the entire world breathing down her neck and commentating on every little choice she does or doesn't make. It makes me think of that line, sometimes growing up precocious means you don't grow up at all. Like, a lot of us, we should be very grateful that when we were growing up, our bad choices were not being recorded constantly, because most of us would probably be in prison. Or not prison, but like, you know, Twitter jail. And, you know, as much as it's nice to see her try to reclaim her power and enjoying stepping back into the spotlight in the Midnight's era, I also feel like that visibility brings just so much scrutiny for a litany of reasons. It leads to her no longer being seen as a person with flaws, privileges, and feelings. It's dehumanizing, which feels antithetical to how much her music and just music in general is about the human experience and empathy. So Tortured Poets kind of ends up being about like how she feels about the perception of the public and the media and the industry as a whole. I feel like this is probably the most vicious she's ever been towards the whole world, frankly. And then you get I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. The fact that it's produced to make you feel like you're in the middle of this huge tour, just like her, trying to hit your marks and entertain millions, all the while you're just slowly dying inside. Miserable. Putting on a smile and singing your heart out about the things that are haunting you. Like, girl, it me making YouTube videos. Like, I literally was watching Ash's reaction, and she was talking about how she often, like, feels that way. Like, with her Cowboy Carter video, she was feeling, like, fucking awful, but then she forced herself to film it because it was the only time that she would be able to film it. And I was just like, you know what? I feel that, and I gotta do that. Like, sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it, and then you take care of yourself afterwards. But just know, every YouTuber you watch is probably dying inside, because you don't know us. You don't. Also, I just love the fact that this song in particular is sandwiched between LOML and the smallest man who ever lived. This mad woman knew what she was doing. So not only dealing with heartbreak from two directions, but also having to manage your persona and mask the entire time. Like, dear God, I hope this girl gets a long nap to just sit with her feelings for a while. It does nearly end with a nicer song, The Alchemy, being about a new, seemingly happier relationship. But that ending note being Clara Bow, reminding me a lot of The Lucky One, with its acknowledgement of how vicious the industry and just the world in general is to women like her. The fact that it's just going like, hey, you remind me of this other woman that we exploited and put away in an asylum about 50 years ago. You can make us a lot of money. And then when you turn 30, we'll throw you out. And then the fact that it mentions women who aren't even dead yet, like Stevie Nicks and even Taylor. Ooh, I felt that, because it makes me go like, oh, the cycle will repeat. There will be another Taylor that we treat like shit because we haven't learned anything. We talk like we've learned everything, like we're not going to do this again, and then we do it again. And then we talk about how we'll never do this again, and then we do it again. So on, you get it. All of this, it really makes the album feel like it's just a long venting session without satisfactory conclusions, because if the last few years have kind of shown anything, that's I hate to be that person, but that's how life be sometimes. You think you reach a happy ending, and then life goes, nope. And then you get a railroad spike of depression throwing you to the kitchen floor, and you're just kind of waiting for death. I also really want to say I love the Fortnight music video. In general, I love Fortnight as an opening track. I think it really sets the tone with this spacey, lonely vibe, just slowly losing your mind as you try to like fake the happy life, especially like this kind of vibe with white picket fences. It's kind of giving me like early 20th century life, and trying to look the part and, you know, stay sane while you're slowly losing your mind over this person who's kind of vexing you. And then you wind up locked away in an asylum in the most iconic dress anyone's ever seen. This use of white, I think, is really unnerving too. It feels very overly sterile and artificial, which I think a lot of the album feels that way. And it feels like it's meant to evoke that feeling of, you know, being locked away. Like it's this very dispassionate, distant view of very raw, vulnerable emotions. Taylor, just in this gorgeous black dress, calmly standing atop desks as burning papers fly around her, trying to appear sane as everything, including her work, shows that she's feeling the exact opposite. This crowd of people, faceless people, being in the background, writing, arguably reporting on everything that they do as they just watch her endlessly. Still not over chats and reacts, like Patreon exclusive video. Like, sign up for their Patreon, bitches. But like, they reacted to the Fortnight music video, and they actually made the connection that the ceiling fans, you know, the ones that are like going on endlessly, they're her literal fans watching her every move and judging. Yeah, her staring dead-eyed into her lover's eyes, and then in the next shot, she looks like she's kind of going, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I like, girl, I feel you. I feel the unhingedness, the disappointment, the pain, the suffering. There is madness in those eyes. And I vibe. It really all adds to this feeling of this professional facade that's being violently, viciously torn apart by the inherent violence of life, and honestly, by herself. It's reminding me a lot of the song Golden G-String by Miley Cyrus, where she's like, you dare to call me crazy. Have you looked around this place? So off of this standard edition, I don't think I have a true favorite. Well, that's a lie. My favorite is Florida. I do have a few other favorites too, like But Daddy, I love him. Again, I fucking love how defiant she is here. I hate the man, but I respect the vibe. And I also just really like that line of all these vipers dressed empaths clothing. Words, I'm dying. Florida, Surprise favorite. I was not expecting to like this at all. This dark, stadium-ready bop about running away to get away from your demons is everything to me, especially with Florence and the Machine's inclusion. These ghostly, high-pitched vocals from Florence, the disappearance of a cheating husband and potentially hiding buddies in swamps. Yes, please give me more. Give me more. Guilty as Sin is also more of a bop than I expected. I mostly love it for the melody, especially in those choruses. And I also really like how shamelessly messy it is. And it's other things that I can't sing if I want to stay monetized, but you all know what I mean. Like, even as an admitted prude, I vibe. Well, not prude, just demisexual, whatever. But it really feels like it's adding to the indulgent, decadent vibe this entire era is kind of bathed in. Who's Afraid of Little Old Me was my favorite. Florida has overtaken it, but I still really love this deep, powerful fury the song radiates. It reminds me so much of Mad Woman. Like, I was this sweet, gentle-hearted artist just sharing my feelings about love. And then y'all transform me into this fucking monster and then you blame me for it? Girl, fuck you. You should sleep with one eye open, because I'm about to gouge the other one out with one of my stilettos. No, I don't know why I used a southern accent there, but I did. The way her voice goes high on the eponymous line as she's just screaming at you, I felt that. I felt that so bad. And her joking that she's laced her lyrics to be addictive, fucking genius. And then, of course, LOML and The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, which to me feel like two sides of the same coin. LOML is a lot sadder, but they both have this righteous fury over someone who wasted her fucking time utterly and left her completely broken and unable to even really believe in love, which to me is one of the worst things you can do to a person. Make them think there is no such thing as love. Ooh, you got a special spot in the ninth ring. The bridge on The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, perfection. Oh my God, I love it so much. I would have died for your sins. I just died. She wrote that. Who let her write that? Who? And even that line of not wanting someone back, but just wanting to know why. Why did you do this to me? That is some deeply relatable, cathartic shit. Like, I decided I do need closure, bitch. Oh, and, of course, there's the anthology. Now, I'm probably going to be a bit mean here and say, I wish she waited like a month before we got this. At first I was really excited to have these songs, even though I was fucking tired as hell and ready to die that night. But I think having this double album has made it even harder for me to process both sides, especially the anthology. I still have not processed like any of that shit. And I like a lot of the songs off of this one. I just really can't form any like actual opinions about it as a body of work, just because like there's so much. There's so much, and it hit me out of nowhere when the first part of the album was already throwing curveballs at my face. Like, I really wish she made us wait for that. Like, there was no need. But at least the 4 bonus tracks that were all locked away on variants are here. So that's something, I guess. I can say, at least in the anthology's defense, it's not like Midnight's, where it feels like crucial parts of the story are missing and were only added in by this supplemental thing. Thankfully, I think the main story on the standard edition of the album is present. It's hard to decipher, but it's there. Whereas the anthology just kind of feels like extra bonus stuff. I've seen a lot of people liken it to the Evermore album, and I can definitely see that. Folklore and Evermore still hold the crown for me as her best work thus far and my favorite albums and my favorite era from her. Tortured Poets doesn't come anywhere fucking near it, but I get it. Okay, so I've given it a couple more days to sit with the anthology tracks and listen through. Yeah, I prefer the anthology to the main album. I do still wish we had more of a break between them. However, I adore the production on these tracks. I love the pianos and the guitars. I believe Aaron Dessner is more of a main producer on the anthology than he was on the main album, and it really shows. It really feels like a spiritual successor to the production we saw on Folklore and Evermore, and that's probably why I prefer it overall to the main album. Like, this is the vibe that I kind of expected from Tortured Poets to begin with. Like, we got the aesthetic for it. And I was like, oh, it's going to be like classy folklore. And then it was not that. And then the anthology was like, bitch, because I'm that. Anyhow, I absolutely adore it. I love the black dog with the way that the production starts blaring as she belts screaming after a very quiet chorus. And then the way she reverses that at the end of the song where it's built up. But then at the end, she's worn down and she can barely say screaming. Like, oh my God. I was not expecting a song called Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus to be one of my favorites, but it is. I love the bolter, the prophecy. Ooh, the prophecy hit me like a semi-truck. I love the albatross. Love How Did It End? I felt thoroughly dragged by that one, as we all should. The manuscript is the perfect ending to this entire era. It really feels very reflective and meta. The way it ends with the story isn't mine anymore. Just, ooh. Oh, I felt that. So yeah, I really like the anthology tracks. They're my favorite part of this era. And it makes me really sad that they're not the main attraction. Yeah. So overall, I think I really like Tortured Poets, but I think I like the concept and the energy behind it more than I like the actual album. I don't even think this was going to be one of my favorite albums from her, quite honest. I thought it was at first, but I think now that I've had more time to sit with it and let it stew, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I prefer Midnights. Burn the bitch. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that, because I did really love Midnights, but like Midnights is not really usually up my alley, but like I preferred Midnights to this. So yeah, but I do really like this rambly, burnt out, bitter energy that's radiating off of Tortured Poets. Part of me just kind of wishes it was more channeled into a more concise, sonically different kind of vibe. Like I love her and Jack working together. I think they make great work together. But when she started working with Aaron Dessner on Folklore and Evermore, it introduced this completely new sound to her, and it felt magical. And like, let's be real, a lot of the songs that people really like off of Tortured Poets are the Aaron songs. It's like, I don't want her to stop working with Jack, but I feel like I really want her to start experimenting with other artists and just to come up with a new sound. Like if the next album is synthy, I might commit arson. So yeah, those are my tortured feelings on a tortured album by a tortured artist. And you're probably tortured also. And you might torture me in the comments if you're really upset. I don't know. Look, I was going to say something, but I don't, if Taylor doesn't owe us perfection, I don't owe you perfection. So goodbye.
Get out of my house.
Oh, but remember to subscribe before you go. Okay, bye. Oh yeah, my catchphrase. It's been a shit show. As much as a shit show as the relationship with Maddie Healy.